From emails to reports and project proposals, it's hard to meet the demands of today's competing priorities without some help. Grammarly is the essential AI communication assistant that boosts your productivity at work so you can get more of what you need done faster. Just a few clicks can tailor your tone and writing so you come across exactly as you intend. Get time back to focus on your high-impact work. Download Grammarly for free at grammarly.com/podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast, and we've got a great podcast for you as we're just going to go with a two-part podcast today just because, well, we were expecting to have Game 5 of the ALDS. The MLB decided to give us north of a 2.5 hour rain delay, and we got no game, so there is no recap to be had. So we're going to be talking to Ben Wilson about what we're going to be able to expect out of the NLCS. We were doing this with Ben as the rain delay was going on, so we don't have as much for ALDS Game 5 between the Guardians and the Yankees, but did ask a little bit about how the Astros match up with both of those teams as well, so we're going to give you guys a little bit on that front as well, but really going to be taking a look at the NLCS on this one, and then in the final segment, I'm going to give you guys picks and analysis on both games that we're going to be seeing today, NLCS Game 1 along with ALDS Game 5, and a little something I like to call Touch Them All. If you ever have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at unit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so as per usual, please just send these into the timeline. The other way, that is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. We've got no recap. Let's just dive in with the conversation with Ben Wilson right about now, as we are going to give the proper introduction as well. He does amazing work over at VSiN, but on top of that, this guy does a little bit of everything, as I know that his play-by-play work has been absolutely supreme. You've been able to catch him on Fox Sports 1 recently in terms of more college basketball. I know that he's been doing a little bit of indoor football this recent year. I know that he just goes all over the place, does some work over at ESPN Plus, list goes on, and to be able to follow Ben on Twitter, that's at Ben_Wilson_ and then the number 1 altogether. And Ben, you have been a hardworking man doing everything from the Lombardi line to college baseball the last few months. Always do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I know you're excited. I can tell by the tenor in your voice that we're under a month away from the college basketball season starting. So, yes, it is. Today, I think as we're recording today, we're a few days away from the old equinox where we get all 4 sports, at least major sports, going at the same time. So that usually means that's like our busy season, and I'm excited for it. So I appreciate the invite as always.
And you've spent some of the last few weeks taking a look at Victor Wembanyama, who that guy is going to be very impressive when he goes into the NBA. So you had a front row ticket to that, and well, we had a front row ticket to the Milwaukee Brewers not making the postseason this year as well. That's a story for another day, as the team that knocked them out of the postseason essentially is the Philadelphia Phillies. And I thought that there could be a little bit of chaos on the National League side of things. I thought that the Astros coming in, they had a much easier road to the World Series than the LA Dodgers or the Atlanta Braves. I'm not sure about you, though, but I did not see 2 wildcard teams being in the NL Championship Series, and I think that does just go to show in general the strength that we did see in the National League this season, and just how all these rosters were relatively evenly matched, even though you do have a team in the Phillies that does have one clear weak point in the bullpen.
Right. It's funny, too, how we've seen this general, I guess more from the national perspective, but this narrative that's like, all right, what do we need to do to change the postseason format? This isn't fair. 300-win teams, none of them are even in the championship series in the NL. But think back to postseasons past here over the past few years, like it's been pretty chalky. Usually you get more wonky results when you have, anytime you're taking a sport inherently that has a 162-game regular season sample size, and then you're boiling it down to, at least in the preliminary round of the playoffs, to a best of 5, you should probably expect some pretty crazy outcomes. We just haven't seen that over the last couple of years for a variety of factors. It is funny to me that everybody is on board all right, we got to change it somehow, and we need to figure out a way to make this more optimal for the best teams. the way the postseason is set up, this is going to happen every so often. We talked a bunch of times, Greg, throughout the regular season, and if it was going to be two teams to kind of break up the mega market teams at the top here within the National League, it probably was always going to be the Phillies and the Padres. I mean, we talked about how the Phillies, really since May, it's been pretty apparent, they have been the highest variance team of any in the NL, and we've seen the highs, we've seen the lows, and the fact that they're here with an interim manager and they've been that way for the bulk of the season is very telling there. Same deal with San Diego with how big of an underachiever they were, at least in the regular season. And as I look at this matchup, I don't know about you, Greg, but to me, the biggest area where you have to start your handicap here is what do you make of the Phillies against the main lefty they'll face in the starting rotation in Blake Snell, who does not have a great postseason history of going deep into games, and B, the matchup against the lefty at the closer position in Josh Hader, who's now had this resurgent October. Seems like he's found more life. The mechanics never really abandoned him. It was more the mental side of the game. Because Philadelphia, that's been something they've been so good at, and they're a top 6 team in WRC plus against lefties, top 10 in hard hit percentage. And you think about the way they were able to come at Atlanta's pitchers, both lefties and righties, but especially on the lefties, and just mash them to death throughout that series. Started in game 1 against Max Fried. That, to me, is the biggest part of the handicap, where if you're San Diego, you understand, just like the Dodgers here, you're going to have to ride Hader as much as you can in the late innings. And especially with a 3-man rotation on the pitching side, you figure Snell is going to get at least 2 outings in a spot like this, given that you only have the 2 other alternatives in Darvish and Musgrove. So that's where I start the handicap, and that's what's hard for me to figure out, Greg. I give the Phillies a slight edge in that regard, and if you're going to make me bet this, I'd probably lean that way since they are just a slight dog. But this does feel like as much of a pick'em series as you could probably draw up here.
Yep, I give the slight edge to the San Diego Padres just because you did mention it. Josh Hader is now back at 100%, and I think that this is so critical because those that know inside Milwaukee, and you know this along with myself because both of us are from the great state of Wisconsin, that Josh Hader was just dealing with some things in his personal life, and I'm sure that some people are going to be drawing other conclusions, but I know that there was a little bit of a tough pregnancy that caused him to be a little bit away from the Milwaukee Brewers. His wife was going through quite a few things with it, and I have to feel like that probably weighed on him a little bit, and we always take a look at the analytics. We always take a look at just in general how a guy is doing out there on the field. But I do think that Josh Hader is a classic case of why you have to take humanity into sort of your handicap as well, because it just looks like he's in a completely different place right now. And you saw it with the LA Dodgers. They could not hit him. And in each out of his last 13 outings, he has not allowed an earned run. And I think that that's one of the biggest weapons remaining in the postseason.
That's a great point you make on the handicapping front, especially for baseball, where we are so statistically and analytically driven. And as you talk about with his wife, which she had to go through right around the All-Star break, that's when the issue started for Hader. He left the team 3 different times in that stretch for Milwaukee on the bereavement family list, which is pretty unusual for some, just in general. Clearly had an impact, and the Brewers tried to at least get to some value for him. Looked like for a time that was a trade that would benefit nobody with how bad his tenure for San Diego started here. But you look at the Padres now and how their bullpen, even though numbers, even over the past 30 days, still are not super, don't provide, a whole lot of confidence coming in. And we've seen this in the postseason before. We've seen Milwaukee teams that really didn't have much in the way of hitting or were really top heavy on the starting pitching side. They made a run. I mean, they made it to a game 7 of the NLCS, basically riding Hader as hard as they could. You'd have to say, if you're comparing that 2018 Brewers team to what you have in this 2022 Padre team, San Diego definitely has more punch at the plate hitting wise. And I'd say, the starting pitching is pretty comparable. And keep in mind, if you're doing the comparison, that Dodger team the Brewers were going up against was an absolute behemoth, probably much better on paper than Philadelphia. So the path to me, Greg, as you lay out, it's definitely there. And with how good Darvish and Musgrove have been, especially when you start a postseason, you have both of those guys going into New York and Darvish setting the table really for the postseason. That, to me, is where this run began for San Diego. When you think about how disappointing they were the bulk of the regular season, especially when you have the home field advantage, that's nice, but that, to me, doesn't matter as much for San Diego. It's more like, can you go on the road? Like, what can you do at Citizens Bank Park, where that was clearly an intimidating factor on the Atlanta side. A little bit surprising, right? For a divisional opponent who has made a World Series run, ought to be used to a park like that. And they really looked imposed and a little bit off their game. So I imagine that will travel the pitching for Darvish and Musgrove specifically. I just have to think. And to me, it's like if you like San Diego, I'd imagine that profiles is more of an under series. If you like Philadelphia, you probably think more of these games go over because Philly is going to have to keep the bats hot to win the series. That to me was a big thing when we know, as you mentioned, the bullpen has been a bit of a weakness. And you are, at this point in the year, you're still rolling out Noah Syndergaard as a fourth starter in the playoffs. It's been a bit of an ambitious stretch there to rely on a guy like him in the back end of your rotation there. So that's kind of how I would play it if I was betting this. Looking to overs or Phillies, if you're looking to correlate it, unders or Padres. I don't know if you agree there, but that's probably what it comes down to. And nothing will surprise me. I kind of expect at least a 6-game series here.
I totally agree with you. I do think that the more overs that we see, the better it is for the Phillies, and the more unders that we see, it is better for the Padres, as Ben Wilson does amazing work over here at VSiN. He's joining me on the podcast, and I really do think that this is just a matchup-by-matchup series because you take a look at Game 1, figures to be Zach Wheeler going for the Philadelphia Phillies, and then you've got Darvish, who's going to be going for the San Diego Padres. No doubt a great pitching matchup. Then in Game 2, you're going to have Aaron Nola, who's been terrific on the road for the Philadelphia Phillies all season long. Got to figure that he goes up against Blake Snell. And those are two games I think are going to be playing themselves to the under. But I really think that when things go back to Philadelphia, when you got Ranger Suarez and then pretty much mystery starter, we saw the
right.
poo-poo platter of like Noah Thor, Syndergaard. You could see some Bailey Felter. I sure hope we don't see Kyle Gibson because that's pretty much a human white flag for the Philadelphia Phillies. But if you see those guys, got to be figuring out a lot of runs. And I think that this is for what you were talking about a little bit earlier, this being a bit more of a pick'em series. And I agree with that. I give a little bit of an edge to the Padres, but I think that this is a relatively evenly matched where I think the real value is just playing this game by game because I really like the under in Game 1 with Darvish going. I think that both games in San Diego with a total of 7 or even a 6.5, I could see those going under. And then when you get back to Philadelphia, I think that those games turn a little bit more offensive base. I think that you could see a slugfest breakout, and I think that you could be looking at much more of an overswing in those games, and those could bode quite a bit better for the Philadelphia Phillies, and then you could perhaps get yourself into a best-of-3 sort of scenario.
Absolutely. I think that's the proper way to play it. It would be remiss without noting the fact that you think about this series specifically, and my mind is triggered this memory since this series does start in San Diego, but you go back 7 years and these were the 2 worst teams in the NL. It's just kind of amazing in the way baseball works in today's day and age. I was actually at a Phillies-Padres game at Petco. I was on vacation. This was August 2015. And there was nobody at this game. Both of these teams ended up losing at least 90 games, if not 100. I think the Padres' losing pitcher that day was Kevin Quackenbush. I know a guy you're very familiar with, Greg. He was like Alexi Amarista, was like the leadoff hitter then for San Diego. So what's funny is that was Aaron Nola as a rookie, basically. I remember watching him start at Petco, and it's like how these franchises have come. It's just amazing to me. It's funny because we can talk about the same deal with the Astros on the AL side, and they were kind of in a similar position back then when you think about the rebuild. I think the Padre crowd, too, it's kind of underrated. I don't think most people were expecting to get the zany, crazed crowd that we got for that Padre-Dodgers series. I think part of that certainly was the proximity of the two teams, but I expect, as much as people will say, well, Philly might actually have an advantage here with the crowd, these are going to be awesome atmospheres. I think these fans for both teams have been waiting for teams like these for some time. So what does that lean to? We always tend to say good pitching in general tends to beat good hitting. I would like to follow that, and it would certainly follow your lead to back the Padres here. I'm just a little scared off going against Philadelphia, at least from a series perspective. And we've seen how hot they can be in short sample sizes. So if anything, it would be just the game by game. But I can't wait just to see the atmosphere. As I think back, I still have my scorecard saved, Greg, from that. I think it was August 7th, 2015 game that was just horrific baseball going back and forth.
Yeah, that was not necessarily the world's greatest baseball, to say the least. I think that this series should be significantly better, and I think that we should see something that is pretty darn solid out there in the ALCS as well. As we are currently doing this, as we have no idea how the ALDS Game 5 game turned out, or if we got one in general, because we're doing this during the very long rain delay that we saw out there. So that's a very interesting ordeal, and if we do not get a game on Monday, and even if we do get a game, but it goes super duper late, you got to figure that bodes very well for the Astros. But I just feel like with the NLCS that we just talked about, winner of that, in my opinion, is going to be getting the Astros, whether or not it is the Guardians or the Yankees. I mean, especially if this game does not get played for Monday. I just take a look at the Astros. I feel like they got more depth in terms of pitching than any other team that is remaining right now. The Guardians might be able to match it in the bullpen, but Guardians certainly are not going to be able to match up with the Houston Astros in terms of that offense. I'm not sure how you take a look at things in the American League, but the way that I view it, the Astros should be able to take care of whoever they are going to be facing in this ALCS.
No question. The Mariner series tells you a lot. If you're looking at the small sample size for what makes this Houston team so hard to beat, just in a series type setting. And as much as you say, all right, well, what do you get outside of the three starting pitchers? And we saw some struggles from Justin Verlander in his first postseason start against Seattle, and you can maybe ask the question, all right, the guy's almost 40. What will you get as the innings continue to pile up for him? But like what we saw out of Luis Garcia, the game Saturday, and you had the 7 different relievers used, all of whom were just tremendous against Seattle in the sweep. It just shows you, even though I know the argument could be made, well, you take Jordan Alvarez out of the game on the Houston lineup, and who's really beating you? I mean, fair when you think about how Seattle pitched them in that in the ALDS series to begin with, but the depth there to me makes all the difference. And I felt, and we talked about this back early in the regular season, that they were clearly a notch above the Yankees, even when New York was on this insane 120-win pace. And it felt that way then. I certainly feel that way now with how the results have borne out long-term for New York. So regardless of who wins that series, would certainly make the Astros a pretty healthy favorite. VSiN, we had one of the DraftKings senior traders who works on setting the MLB lines with us, and he was saying it would probably be Astros in the minus $2 range if it was the Guardians. In a way, I'm hoping the Yankees get by again. We don't know what'll happen yet, but I would imagine that there's enough Yankee support still in the market with how public of a team they are. And what's interesting is, from what I've heard, at least from the bookmaking perspective, is a lot of these books haven't gotten much Astros interest all year. Just because, like, the general public, like, they don't want to bet the Astros. They still have the whole trash can cheating thing in the back of their minds. Yet Houston is pretty clearly the bet to make right now. That's the angle I'd be looking at. And you think about where they're at bullpen-wise, it can also make for some really good in-game positions. Let's say that the bats outside of Alvarez stay relatively quiet and you get these low-scoring, tight games into the late innings. You give a huge edge to Houston in those particular spots. Regardless of who it is against Cleveland or New York, you're going to have a really taxed bullpen on the other side. So there will be edges like that to play, especially in-game. And as much as it's hard to sometimes predict out and sort of forecast where the in-game edge is going to be, that's a clear one to me, Greg, that jumps out, and that's without even knowing who the opponent is.
Yep, and the clear advantage that we're going to have with the Astros as well is just the experience factor, the fact that they made the World Series last year, and they have been in the ALCS. I think now each out of the last 5 or 6 seasons, this team has been an absolute wagon, so you got that as a nice edge for this Astros team as well. And we always get an edge on this podcast when you join us, Ben, because you do absolutely amazing work taking a look at the great game of baseball. But on top of that, I know that you're doing some work for the G League this season, as we've got one out here in lovely Las Vegas. Like I said, Victor Wembanyama. I probably
Wembanyama, Greg. I bet you'll
Wembanyama, yep.
Yeah.
We were trying, and yeah, the guy is absolutely amazing. We'll just call him Victor W because he is going to be taking the NBA by storm in the next few seasons. You got a nice up-close and personal view of him. And on top of that, I know that you're doing a great job taking a look at the great game of football, getting geared up for a great college basketball season as well. So love the good people at home know they're able to follow you on social media and just everything that you've got going on in general.
Yeah, we're at Ben_Wilson_1. Always appreciate kind words, Greg. And yes, the G League season starts November 4th. Scoot Henderson is the other guy who is going to be the number 2 overall pick next year. He is the star player for the G League Ignite. So I'm doing all those games this year. Really excited for that. I just added a gig at the tennis channel. So they have a new Red Zone type show there that launches here in a couple weeks. So we're doing that. It's with a live betting angle. So for the bettors out there, if you've ever wanted to get into live tennis betting, that is called The Second Serve, a new show that launches in a couple weeks. So pumped for that. And as always, very busy. I'll be very excited to listen to all your shows here throughout the end of these CS and World Series, Greg, because I know you always have great insight. So it's going to be a fun few weeks here.
Ben has it all covered now. He does baseball,
tennis
football,
too, yeah.
Basketball, tennis. I don't think you do any hockey quite yet. We'll need to have you helping out our good friend Andy McNeil because I know he does a tremendous job here at VSiN with all of that. But, I mean, my goodness, Ben is the man of all sports, does so also well, and whenever he joins this podcast, always lends terrific insights. A big thanks to Ben for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. Coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis for NLCS Game 1, and well, as of right now, may or may not be ALDS Game 5. We shall see on that in a little something I like to call Touch a Ball.
breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family and Podcast. It is always great to get Ben Wilson aboard. He does amazing work for us over at VSiN. On top of that, as you heard, he's doing some work for the Tennis Channel. I know that we saw him on Fox Sports' coverage of college basketball last season as well. He's doing some work for the G League. He did some indoor football. I mean, the guy literally does a little bit of everything, and he does so also well. It is always a pleasure to get him aboard. A big thanks to Ben for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Tuesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at @JNR_D1. As I do this, we've only got one game on the board. You will hear an insert if we wind up getting the ALDS game pushed back to Tuesday. But as I record this live, we are having just one game on the board, so that'll keep things nice, clean, and easy. And this is obviously going to be the DK Nation pick as well. So we go 951, 952 on the betting board. The Philadelphia Phillies are on the road facing off against the Slam Diego Padres, as Yu Darvish is going to be going for the Pods. Zach Whelan and Dylan Wheeler is going to be on the bump for the Phillies. And the Phillies are finding themselves as slight underdogs in this ordeal. You're going to be getting them between a plus 105 to a plus 115. Minus 121 to minus 126 is the number on the Padres. 6.5 is the total. The over is anywhere between minus 115 and minus 125. The under, that is anywhere between minus 105 and plus 105. And this is a circumstance where I do like the under, and I do like the San Diego Padres. With the Padres, I set them more of a minus 134 favorite, so I'm going to be willing to ride with them, and I'm going to make the DK Nation pick the Padres in this spot, just because with the Padres, they do have such a big bullpen advantage over the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the Philadelphia Phillies have been able to mix and match quite a bit more, and with Zach Wheeler, he is going to be able to lend much more length than guys in the regular season were able to, like Kyle Gibson, Bailey Falter, list goes on and on. But also be mindful that Zach Wheeler has not been the same pitcher on the road as he has been at home. Now, these are regular season numbers. During the postseason, Wheeler has been a little bit better, giving up 3 runs in 12 and a third innings in his 2 road postseason starts. But during the regular season, he did have a 3.84 road ERA compared to a .185 ERA at home. Also be mindful, too, though, that with the San Diego Padres, you've got a bunch that they average nearly 5 runs per game on the road compared to more like 3.7 runs per game at home. It's been a Padres team that they have struggled a little bit with the bats, and I mean, it makes sense. It's just because Petco Park is one of the most pitcher-friendly parks that you're going to find in all the big leagues, but Yu Darvish has really thrived on that. Ever since he has gotten to San Diego, his ERA has been significantly better at home than on the road. 3.50 road ERA compared to a 2.60 home ERA, and when it comes to Yu Darvish at home, he has been giving up about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, but fewer than 2 walks per 9. His strikeouts per 9 rate, that is right at a 9, but you also take a look at what Yu Darvish has been able to do regular season and postseason over the course of his last 6 starts. This guy has been absolute nails, as he's been posting up a sub 250 ERA. They get banged around a little bit against the LA Dodgers, but I think that you could expect a very good start from Yu Darvish, as he has allowed 3 runs or fewer in all but one of his last 17 starts. He has been nails on that front end. Something else we were talking about with our good friend Ben Wilson is the Padres having that big advantage with Josh Hader. 14 straight appearances without an earned run. He gave up an unearned run in a regular season game against the Dodgers. That was not his fault, but he has been terrific. Steven Wilson, he's been able to step up in the bullpen, and Robert Suarez, he had a sub 3 ERA during the regular season along Tim Hill. These are much better options than you've got with the Philadelphia Phillies, as with the Phillies, they've been dealing with an injury to David Robertson. Now, I like Brad Hand, sub 250 ERA during the regular season, and Sir Anthony Dominguez seems to be himself once again coming off the injured list. He was not looking great towards the end of the regular season, but in that series against the Atlanta Braves, he was able to throw 3 scoreless innings, punching out 6 in those. It looks like he's back to rolling the way that he was, but Andrew Bellotti, Connor Brogdon, they're a little bit of a downgrade in terms of what they are able to provide versus the San Diego Padres. Now, I will say for the Philadelphia Phillies, you do have a guy in Kyle Schwarber that's certainly able to supply the boom. He was able to hit 45 plus home runs during the regular season. He's had his struggles here in the postseason. He's got one more hit than myself, but you know, he's not struggling. Bryce Harper, from September 1st until the end of the regular season in very early October, he was hitting a $196 in that 5-week stretch with 3 home runs. He's got 3 home runs here in the postseason, and he's been hitting a .435 here in the playoffs. He has been absolutely terrific. Rhys Hoskins Hoskins, hit or miss guy, but he seemed to heat up towards the back half of the series against the Atlanta Braves, had 30 home runs and hit about a 250 overall during the season. JT Realmuto, since the All-Star break, he's been able to hit about a 300. You've had Bryson Stott be able to pick it up as well. In the postseason, it's been a little bit more hit or miss, but post All-Star break, he was solid. Gene Segura hitting about a 275 for the season, and Alec Boehm has been able to do a nice job moving the line in general. But for the San Diego Padres, Trent Grisham with 3 home runs here in the postseason, he's all of a sudden been able to find it in. That was a big question mark because got a lot of guys like Juan Soto, Ha-Seong Kim, Jurickson Profar, Jake Cronenworth that throughout the season fit about a 238 to a 250 who'd be able to step up, be able to offer a little bit more for them. Heck, even Austin Nola, he was another guy that was sort of in that fold. He has been hitting very well here in the postseason as he and Grisham both hitting at 381. You've been able to have Juan Soto come up with some very timely hitting as well. He always is able to move the line, but he's been able to do that as well. And then you've had a pair of home runs and Manny Machado just continuing to do what he does. He hit about a 300 during the regular season, hitting at 296 here in the postseason. So the Padres, they just looked like the more well-rounded team. I think that Zach Wheeler going to struggle a little bit on the road, but I do think that Wheeler probably going to have a performance similar to how he pitched against the Atlanta Braves. Probably goes like 6 innings, giving up 3 runs. I think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. Yu Darvish has been tremendous coming into this one. Very much a pitcher-friendly ballpark as well, so balls that might fly out in Philadelphia in June and July, they should be able to hold in this ballpark. Semi-total of 6.3. Looking at the under, DK Nation write-up, that is going to be on the San Diego Padres money line. And here's the insert as 957, 958 is on the board. The Guardians are on the road facing off against the New York Yankees. It looks like it's going to be Aaron Savali still for the Cleveland Guardians. There is a chance that we could see Shane Bieber, but with that said, looking like Aaron Savali for the Cleveland Guardians, and Nestor Cortez is going to be on the bump for the New York Yankees. As I am recording this right around 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, there's no numbers listed for this game, but I've had to adjust my handicap from what I was going to be going with because you may recall yesterday the DK Nation pick was going to be on the over of 7.5 when it was supposed to be Jameson Taillon for the Yankees. I think that it's a game changer that this has been pushed back a full day, and now you've got Nestor Cortez and a day of rest for that bullpen, as I know my total at 6.9, so a 6.5 or less I'd be still willing to dive in on the over, but now a 7 or higher I'll be taking a look at the under. And with the Yankees, I had them minus 152 before with Jameson Taillon on the mound. I'm willing to go to a minus 174. I think that this is a complete game changer having Nestor Cortez out there on the mound because he has been supreme at home thus far this season, as he's got a sub-2 ERA, giving up right around 0.6 home runs per 9 innings. He's been able to do a good job with his swing and miss stuff all season long, getting a little bit over 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but on top of that, with Nestor Cortez, the command, that has been rock solid as well all season long, giving up fewer than 2.5 walks per 9 innings. So he goes up against someone in Aaron Savali that, credit where credit is due, 3 runs or fewer surrendered in 9 out of his last 10 starts post All-Star break, and an ERA of about a 3.2 after pre-All-Star break. It was a little bit north of a 6.1, but Aaron Savali has also made pretty much 4 starts since the beginning of the month of September. It's been very touch and go. He's had 2 stints on the injured list, and he also comes in having given up multiple home runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts, and those starts came against the Royals twice, the Texas Rangers, the Chicago White Sox, and the Seattle Mariners. So not necessarily the most stiff of competition, and for Savali, he's really at his road struggles. 380 home ERA compared to a 588 on the road. Now, I do think that you do have a Guardians team that they're going to be able to piggyback off of them. You've got another starter in Zach Plesac who is going to be good to go. You can utilize Cody Morris for a few innings, and then you get into guys like Trevor Steven, Año de los Santos, Sam Etiges. They all provided a sub 3.2 ERA out of the bullpen. James Karinchak, Emmanuel Clase. They're the best 8th and 9th inning duo in all of baseball. But now for the New York Yankees, you're able to utilize Jameson Taillon in a little bit of relief. Wandy Peralta is now going to be good to go for this game, along with Clay Holmes, which I recognize that both of these guys have been a little bit touch and go, but you're still able to get some good production there. I don't understand why Lucas Luque really hasn't been utilized in this series. He's someone that I actually really do like, right around 270 ERA as well. Miguel Castro, so no shortage of options there. And for the New York Yankees, you do have a rock-solid offense that is headlined by Aaron Judge, now out of the leadoff spot. I thought that that was very big for this team. He had the 62 home runs, but Anthony Rizzo, Giancarlo Stanton in the regular season, a combined 63 home runs. Neither guy have necessarily been able to do a tremendous job in terms of average, but you do have Rizzo who's been able to provide an on-base percentage of right around a 340 all season long. And Harrison Bader, in this series, he's already got 3 home runs. He's been living up to his billing. That has been massive. And Josh Allison's a little bit of a knucklehead, but he's hitting about a 250 overall for for the series. He's been able to move the line along to Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and get 275, less of a knucklehead. And for the Cleveland Guardians, this team was second to last in terms of home runs in the league during the regular season, but that said, they did a much better job on the road. Among their 127 home runs this season, they had 77 of them come on the road compared to just 50 at home, as you've got 5 guys that were able to hit at least a 280 during the regular season: Andres Gimenez, Ahmed Rosario, Oscar Gonzalez, Jose Ramirez, and Steven Kwan, and really the only guy on the team that had 20-plus home runs during the regular season, Ramirez, north of 120 RBI. It's been a little bit touch and go here in the postseason, though. I think that there's a massive pitching advantage for the New York Yankees. I do think that the rain out really benefited them after the day of travel, and the Yankees were having a little bit of a tough time getting into town as well. So got my total set at a 6.9, so 6.5 or less, looking at the over 7 or higher to the under, and with the Yankees set the minus 174 on the money line as well. That will wrap things up for the Tuesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to Ben Wilson of VSiN for joining me in the last segment. If you do like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you've got a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at @Janet_D1. Keep in mind, letter CM, the name does not matter, so as per usual, please just send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to find whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast. If I have that 5-star review coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, that means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.